Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Really excited about today. We're jumping into a super practical part of the book, Outlive.
Yes, this is where things get very actionable.
Exactly. We're tackling Chapter 10. It's called Thinking Tactically, Building a Framework of Principles That Work for You. Got the chapter right here. And our mission, really, is to unpack the key tactical principles laid out here. You know, the actual steps we can think about taking to, well, navigate modern life and hopefully live longer, healthier lives.
That's right. And it flows perfectly from what we've discussed before. We talked about the objective living longer and better, that health span idea.
Right, the strategy.
And the strategy, yeah, understanding the enemy, so to speak, the diseases of aging, the biology behind it all. Now we're getting into the how. How do we actually do it?
And the chapter really kicks off by framing the challenge, the environment we're in. It starts with this really interesting historical point about Stanislas Tonchu, a French doctor back in the 1800s.
Yeah, mid-19th century. Quite remarkable, really.
He noticed cancer seemed to be increasing in cities during the Industrial Revolution. And he linked it, even then, to the progress of civilization.
Incredible insight for the time. He was basically seeing the first hints of what we now clearly identify as the diseases of civilization.
Things like cancer, heart disease.
Type 2 diabetes, dementia, yeah. The data is just overwhelming now. These conditions really exploded as societies industrialized as we moved into cities.
It feels like such a paradox, doesn't it? I mean, modern life has given us so much. Sanitation, medicine, food. Amazing progress. Lifespans have gone up globally.
Undeniably. Living standards, too.
But the very things that brought that progress seem to be, well, creating new roadblocks to living well for longer.
That's the absolute core of the problem. Our environment, what we eat, how we move or don't move. Our stress, our social lives, it's all changed so drastically, so fast.
In evolutionary terms, like overnight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But our genes, our basic biology, still pretty much wired for the world of, tens of thousands of years ago. We're running ancient software on brand new hardware.
Yeah.
And it's often, well, incompatible.
The book brought up that fructose example again from earlier, which really drives this home.
It's a perfect illustration. Yeah. Think about our ancestors. Fructose meant, what? Seasonal fruit, maybe some rare honey.
Scarce stuff.
Very scarce. So being able to efficiently convert that sugar into fat for storage, that was a survival advantage. It helped get through lean times.
Makes sense.
But today, fructose is everywhere. It's cheap. It's in processed foods. It's especially concentrated in sugary drinks. We're just drowning in it.
Right.
And our ancient metabolism just isn't built for that kind of load. It goes from being useful to being actively disruptive, especially in liquid form that hits our system so fast.
So it's not like our environment is acutely poisonous, like, arsenic in the water. It's more of a chronic low-grade toxicity.
That's a good way to put it. The constant availability of hyperpalatable food, the lack of need for physical exertion, the weird sleep schedules, chronic stress. It's not one big hit. It's death by 1,000 cuts, metabolically speaking.
A slow burn.
A slow burn, exactly. And because these diseases, the heart disease, the diabetes, the dementia, tend to show up later in life, mostly after we've had kids.
Natural selection isn't really weeding them out quickly.
Precisely. We're not getting taken out by infections or predators in our 20s anymore. We're facing metabolic breakdown in our 60s, 70s, 80s. And that's why the author argues we need these deliberate, cunning tactics to consciously counteract this mismatch.
Okay, so we get the problem, this mismatch driving diseases of civilization. We understand the strategy involves knowing the biology. Now, finally, the tactics.
The how. Right. Tactics are the specific tools, the methods, the actual actions we take to navigate this modern hazardous environment and aim for those bonus decades in good health.
So it's answering, what can I actually do?
Yes. What concrete steps, starting now, are most likely to cut my risk of chronic disease, reduce my risk of dying prematurely, and just improve how I function, physically and mentally, as I get older?
And the chapter lays out 5 main areas, 5 domains for these tactics in what's called Medicine 3.0.
That's right. These are the big levers we can pull. Number 1 is exercise. And the book really emphasizes, this one calls it arguably the most potent intervention we have for both lifespan and health span.
And it's not just go for a run. It breaks it down.
Crucially, yes. Into specific components you can train. Aerobic efficiency, VO2 max, strength, and stability. Each one matters.
VO2x, I know the term, but maybe break that down a bit more. Why is that specific metric so important?
Sure. Think of VO2 max as your engine's peak power. It's the maximum amount of oxygen your body can actually utilize when you're going all out. It measures how well your heart, lungs, blood, and muscles all work together.
Okay, so peak aerobic capacity.
Exactly. And having a higher VO2 max is incredibly protective. It's strongly linked to lower risk of dying from, well, pretty much anything. Even more predictive than things like smoking or high blood pressure in some studies.
Wow, okay.
So training in ways that improve your VO2 max, that's a really high leverage tactic.
Got it. So exercise is number 1 with those key components. What's domain number 2?
That would be diet or nutrition, though the author prefers the term nutritional biochemistry.
Nutritional biochemistry. Why that term specifically?
Because it shifts the focus. It's not just about food groups or calories. It's about understanding how the molecules in our food interact with our cells, our metabolism, our genes, inflammation, the actual biochemistry of eating.
Right, getting down to the mechanism level. Makes sense. Okay, domain 3.
Sleep, which, used to be kind of ignored by mainstream medicine.
Definitely feels like it gets more attention now.
As it should. It's absolutely fundamental. Proper sleep is critical for metabolic health, brain function, emotional balance, for repairing tissues. It's not passive rest. It's active, essential maintenance.
Okay. And number 4?
Emotional health. This is a big bucket, covers stress management, mindfulness, building resilience, social connection. Our mental state profoundly affects our physical state.
They're tightly linked. And the 5th domain?
That's exogenous molecules. Basically, things we intentionally put into our body that aren't just food for energy or structure. So drugs, supplements, sometimes hormones.
But this chapter 10, it mainly focuses on those first 4, right? Exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health.
Primarily, yes. And that's a key point about this medicine 3.0 concept. Traditional medicine, let's call it medicine 2.0, was heavily focused on domain 5 pills and procedures, often after you already got sick. Mostly reactive. These first 4 domains, the lifestyle factors, have such a massive impact on prevention and even managing disease, but they weren't really part of standard medical training. Doctors focusing on this often had to learn it separately.
It almost sounds too simple, though. Exercise, eat well, sleep, don't stress too much. But the book warns, the devil is in the details.
Oh, absolutely. The headlines are easy. Eat well. Okay, what does that actually mean for you? Based on your genetics, your metabolism, your goals, your life? Same for exercise. What kind? How much? How intense? For your specific needs and risks.
It's not one size fits all.
Not even close. Translating those broad principles into effective, personalized tactics, that's where the complexity lies. You really have to dig into the specifics, the nuances.
Which leads nicely into what makes a tactic effective. And the chapter uses this brilliant analogy, car accidents.
It's such a great way to explain leverage tactics.
Yeah.
Car crashes kill a lot of people. They seem kind of random, but many are preventable.
And we know the basics, right? Wear your seatbelt, don't drink and drive, don't text, slow down. Basic stuff.
Important, yes, but basic. But then you look at the detailed data. Wow. Where do the fatalities disproportionately happen? Not always on the high-speed freeways, surprisingly.
Where then?
Intersections. A huge number of fatal crashes happen in intersections. Specifically, T-bone crashes, often getting hit from the left, driver's side. And here's the kicker.
Yeah.
The person who dies often isn't the one at fault. They might have had the green light, they had the right of way, but someone else ran the red, and bang.
Wow, that's sobering. You think green means go, green means safe.
Exactly. The apparent safety hides a critical point of risk. So the data tells you where a specific high-consequence danger lies. What's the effective tactic?
Look carefully.
Very specifically.
Yeah.
Always look left, then right, then left again before you enter any intersection, even on green light. The book mentions a long-haul trucker friend who swears by this.
That's super specific, actionable,
Yeah.
and targets that hidden high-risk scenario.
That's the key. It's leveraged. It's a tiny bit of effort looking left, right. Left takes, what, 2 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
But it dramatically reduces your risk in a situation where being right might not be enough to save you. It targets the data-identified weak point.
And that's the connection back to longevity tactics. Our modern life is full of these kinds of intersection, hidden hazards in our food environment, our sedentary habits, our sleep patterns.
Precisely. Effective health tactics aren't just vague advice like eat less. They are specific data-informed actions that target known points of high risk in our biology or environment.
They're the health equivalent of looking left, right, left. Small things, maybe, but with potentially huge protective payoffs over time.
Exactly. Compounded over years and decades.
So the chapter then zooms in a bit, especially on nutrition and exercise, calling them the most complex domains.
Yeah, often are, yeah. And they're so interconnected, you usually have to address them together. The author mentions 3 key questions they ask when looking at a patient. 1, are they overnourished or undernourished calorically?
Okay. Calorie balance.
2, are they undermuscled or adequately muscled? Muscle mass is crucial. And 3, are they metabolically healthy? Things like insulin sensitivity, blood sugar control.
And you said these things are often linked.
Oh, very tightly linked. It's incredibly common to see overlap. Someone who's overnourished, almost certainly trending towards, or already has, poor metabolic health. Someone with poor metabolic health, very likely undermuscled relative to where they should be.
Why is that link so strong metabolically?
Well, think about insulin resistance, a cornerstone of metabolic dysfunction. It doesn't just affect blood sugar. It impairs the body's ability to build and maintain muscle tissue. So poor metabolic health actively makes it harder to stay strong.
Ah, okay, so you can't just treat one thing. Like if someone is carrying extra weight but also undermuscled, just slashing calories could backfire.
Big time. If you cut calories drastically without paying attention to protein intake and resistance exercise, you'll lose fat, sure, but you'll likely lose precious muscle too, making the undermuscled problem even worse.
So the tactics have to be coordinated.
Absolutely. You need a plan that, yes, probably involves some calorie reduction for the overnourished part, but simultaneously ensures enough protein and the right kind of exercise stimulus resistance training to preserve or even build muscle while losing fat.
That sounds tricky to balance.
It can get complicated. This is where that devil in the details comes roaring back. The exact amounts, the timing, the type of exercise that really matters and needs to be personalized. It often requires tracking data carefully.
And it's not just about food and movement, right? You mentioned sleep and emotional health are also key domains. How do tactics there connect?
Oh, fundamentally. Shake sleep. If you're chronically sleep deprived, even by just an hour or 2 a night, your insulin sensitivity tanks, regardless of your diet.
Directly.
Directly. It messes with appetite hormones like ghrelin and leptin, making you crave more junk food. It hampers your exercise performance and your ability to recover from workouts. And of course, it affects your mood, your stress resilience.
So improving sleep isn't just about feeling less tired.
Not at all. Tactics to improve sleep, like having a consistent wind-down routine, making your bedroom dark and cool, maybe some relaxation techniques, they have knock-on benefits for your metabolism, your food choices, your ability to exercise effectively, your emotional state. Huge leverage.
That really highlights the interconnectedness. What about emotional health tactics? Stress management, things like that.
Same idea. Chronic stress pumps out cortisol. High cortisol over time can drive insulin resistance, encourage fat storage, especially around the belly, increase inflammation. All things that hurt metabolic health and raise disease risk.
And stress makes it harder to stick to good habits too, I imagine.
Absolutely. It can trigger emotional eating, sap your motivation to exercise. So tactics like mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing, even just spending quality time with loved ones, these aren't just fluffy things. They have real, measurable physiological benefits that support everything else, your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep. It's all one system.
So building your strategy, your playbook, means looking across all these areas and seeing how they influence each other and using data.
Data is crucial. You need the snapshots, blood tests for lipids, glucose, inflammation, liver function, body composition scans. But you also benefit hugely from dynamic data.
Like what?
Maybe a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, to see exactly how your body responds to different foods or meals in real time. Fitness trackers for activity levels, heart rate variability, sleep quality. This data helps you pinpoint your specific vulnerabilities and track if the tactics you're trying are actually working. Allows for that constant adjustment.
It sounds much less like following a rigid diet plan and more like becoming your own health detective.
That's a great way to put it. And that's really the core philosophy in the book. The goal isn't to give you a pre-written prescription that works for everyone, because that doesn't exist.
Right.
The goal is to give you the framework, the understanding of the key domains, the science behind why they matter, the principles of effective tactics. But building your specific playbook, that takes self-experimentation, tracking feedback, iterating.
So the book gives you the map and the compass, maybe some navigation skills.
But you still have to chart your own course.
Exactly. The really granular advice, precisely how much protein you need post-workout, the exact type of interval training best for your current fitness level, the specific relaxation technique that resonates with you that comes from applying the principles and seeing what works through trial, and yes, sometimes error, that's the art part, informed by the science.
And this framework, it has to be flexible, right? Science changes.
Oh, absolutely critical. The author is clear about not getting locked into any one dogma: keto, low-fat, vegan, whatever. The tactics should follow the best current science and your individual results.
And be willing to change tactics if the science evolves or your needs change.
Precisely. The example given is about rethinking long, multi-day water-only fasts. While they can have benefits, emerging concerns about significant muscle loss during such fasts led the author to shift towards tactics that better preserve lean mass, like perhaps shorter time-restricted eating windows combined with adequate protein. The principle is adapt based on the best understanding we have now.
It all comes back to that core objective, doesn't it? It really does. It's about living longer, yes, but living better. Adding life to years, not just years to life. This whole tactical approach is about taking back some control, about consciously working against that default drift towards decline in our modern world.
Rewriting the narrative.
Trying to make each decade potentially better, or at least more functional and vital than the last.
It's a really powerful way to frame it. Thinking tactically. If we circle back to that car analogy one last time, if navigating modern health is like navigating those risky intersections, maybe the challenge for everyone listening is to identify their own riskiest intersections.
That's it, exactly. Where are your personal points of highest leverage, highest hidden risk? Is it consistent lack of sleep chipping away at your metabolic health?
Or maybe a specific food you eat regularly that spikes your glucose way more than you realize.
Right. Or is it neglecting strength training, leading to that slow, insidious loss of muscle year after year? Or maybe it's just unchecked chronic stress that's undermining everything else. You have to figure out your biggest vulnerabilities first.
And then, what's the specific leveraged look left, right, left again tactic you can realistically put into practice? Starting today. Maybe it is setting a non-negotiable sleep window.
Or swapping out that problematic food.
Yeah.
Or scheduling 2 resistance workouts a week. Or committing to 5 minutes of mindful breathing each morning. Small, targeted actions.
Find those interventions that give the most bang for your buck, biologically speaking, and stick with them.
Consistency over time. That's where the real power lies.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you for walking us through these tactile principles from Outlive. It definitely gives us, and hopefully you listening, a lot to think about in building a personal health strategy.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and informed.
And next time on the deep dive, we'll keep exploring these ideas. Maybe we'll take a closer look at one of these specific tactical domains: exercise, nutrition, sleep, or emotional health, and get even more granular. So definitely stay tuned for that.